The rain was coming down harder than a Lot Lizard sales pitch when I first saw him. October 2021, somewhere between Clinton and Elk City on old Route 66. And there he was, this scraggly orange tabby just sitting in the middle of the truck stop parking lot like he owned the place. Most cats would have been hiding under something, but not this one. He sat there in the downpour, staring straight at my Peterbilt like he'd been waiting for me specifically. I'd been driving for 18 hours straight, pushing the logbook limits like every other driver trying to make a living in this economy. The load of automotive parts needed to be in Flagstaff by morning, and I was already cutting it close. Last thing I needed was to worry about some mangy cat, but something about the way he looked at me, those green eyes seemed almost human, made me set the brakes and crack open my door. "What's your story, little man?" I called out over the rumble of idling diesels and the hiss of rain on hot asphalt. The cat meowed once, loud and clear, then started walking toward my truck with the confidence of a driver who'd just found out the scales were closed. That's when I noticed the collar, not some cheap thing from Walmart, but a thick leather band that looked handmade, and hanging from it was a brass tag that caught the light from the truck stop's neon signs. I climbed down from the cab, my joints protesting after all those hours behind the wheel. 23 years of driving truck, and my body reminded me of every single mile. The name's Jake Sullivan, by the way. Been running solo since my divorce 5 years back. Just me and whatever podcast could keep me awake through the night shifts. Never had kids, never had pets. Hell, I could barely keep a cactus alive in my apartment back in Tulsa. But something made me kneel down in that rain-soaked parking lot, my Carhartt jacket getting soaked through, to get a better look at this cat. He didn't run, didn't hiss, just sat there patient as a preacher, like he knew I'd come around eventually. When I reached out my hand, he bumped his head against it, purring loud enough to compete with the reefer units running nearby. That's when I saw what was written on his collar tag. The first side just said meow, which made me chuckle despite myself. What kind of person names their cat meow? But when I turned the tag over, my blood ran cold. There was my name, Jake Sullivan, and below it, a set of GPS coordinates. But the thing that really got me, the thing that made my hand start shaking so bad I nearly dropped my coffee all over the dashboard. Below the coordinates were the words, "From Tommy, 1975. Tommy, my brother who disappeared before I was even born. My brother whose name was only whispered in our house like some kind of ghost story. And 1975, the year he vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but questions and a family that never quite recovered from the hole he left. I scooped up that cat faster than a swift driver, claiming the last parking spot at a Pilot. He didn't fight me, just settled into my arms like he belonged there. We both climbed up into my truck, water dripping everywhere, and I cranked up the heat. Meow shook himself off and immediately claimed the passenger seat, looking around the cab with the air of a DOT inspector checking logbooks. My mind was racing faster than a rookie on his first mountain grade. How could Tommy have known my name in 1975? I wasn't born until 1976, a full year after he disappeared. Mum always said he left in October, just took off one night without a word. Dad never talked about it at all, just got that 1,000-yard stare whenever Tommy's name came up. By the time I was old enough to ask real questions, both my parents were gone. Dad from the bottle, Mum from the cancer. I grabbed my phone and punched in those coordinates with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. The blue dot appeared on the map, showing a location in Arizona just north of Flagstaff, right along my route. My hands were shaking as I stared at that screen, rain drumming on the cab roof like an endless drum solo. This had to be some kind of sick joke. But who would know about Tommy? Who would know to find me at this exact truck stop on this exact night? Meow meowed again, softer this time, and pawed at my jacket pocket. Inside was the letter I always carried, the only thing of Tommy's that survived Dad's rage-fueled purge of his belongings. It was a postcard from Route 66, sent to Mom a week before he disappeared. All it said was, The road shows you things if you know how to look. Tell Jake I'll see him when the time is right. I'd carried that postcard for 15 years, ever since I found it hidden in Mom's jewelry box after she died. She'd written on the back in her shaky handwriting, "He knew about you before you were even conceived." I don't understand how, but Tommy always saw things different. The CB crackled to life, breaking through my thoughts. "Breaker, breaker, anybody out there in this soup? This is Westbound Willie looking for a radio check." I grabbed the mic out of habit. "Yeah, Willie, this is Sooner State. You're coming in loud and clear. Hell of a night to be rolling. 10-4 on that, Sooner State. Hey, you didn't happen to see an orange cat at that truck stop, did you? Strangest thing, old timer came through my fuel island about an hour ago, said he lost his cat, and it was real important someone named Jake Sullivan find it. Said it was a matter of life and death." My blood turned to ice water. I keyed the mic with a hand that felt numb. "What did this old timer look like, Willie?" "That's the weird part, driver. Looked exactly like that missing person poster they got up at the Clinton truck stop. You know, the one that's been there since forever? Tommy Sullivan, disappeared 1975. Spitting image, I swear on my mama's grave. Course that's impossible, right? Guy would be in his 70s by now." I signed off without answering, my mind reeling. Meow had curled up on the passenger seat, but those green eyes were still watching me. Calculating, waiting, what the hell had I just gotten myself into? And more importantly, what was waiting for me at those coordinates? I put the truck in gear, knowing I had to find out. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm as I pulled back onto Route 66, Meow purring in the passenger seat like a diesel engine at idle. The coordinates showed 342 miles to destination, about 6 hours if I kept the hammer down and the bears stayed in their dens. But my mind wasn't on the road. It was on that October night in 1975 when my brother walked out of our house and into legend. I'd grown up with the ghost of Tommy Sullivan. His room stayed locked for years until Dad finally broke down the door in a drunken rage and burned everything inside. Mum saved what she could, that postcard, a few photos, a toy truck Tommy had loved. She'd hidden them like treasures, pulling them out only when Dad was passed out or working late. "Your brother was special," she'd whisper, tracing his face in the photographs. "He saw things before they happened, knew things he shouldn't know. It scared your daddy something fierce." The CB crackled again. "Sooner State? You still out there?" It was Willie again. "Go ahead, Willie." "Listen, driver, I didn't want to say this on the open channel, but that old timer, he left something else. A message. Said to tell Jake Sullivan that the cat knows the way and that October 31st, 1975 wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Mean anything to you?" October 31st, Halloween. The night Tommy disappeared. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Thanks, Willie. I owe you one. Stay safe out there, driver. Something ain't right about this whole thing." He wasn't wrong. I'd been driving long enough to know when something felt off, and this whole situation was screaming wrong notes like a Jake break in a hospital zone. But I kept rolling west, watching the mile markers count down, because sometimes the only way out is through. Meow stood up and stretched, then did something that made my skin crawl. He walked over to my logbook, put his paw on it, and meowed 3 times. Specific, deliberate, like he was trying to tell me something. I glanced down and nearly drove off the road. He was touching October 31st, today's date, 46 years to the day since Tommy vanished. The rain was starting to let up as I crossed into Texas, but the storm in my gut was just getting started. I'd driven this stretch of 66 1,000 times, but tonight it felt different, older, like the modern road was just a thin veneer over something ancient and patient. The headlights caught glimpses of abandoned buildings, old motels with their neon signs dark and broken, ghost towns that the interstate had killed decades ago. That's when I saw him, standing on the shoulder about 100 yards ahead, thumb out like a hitchhiker. My high beams lit him up clear as day, tall, thin, wearing clothes that looked straight out of the 70s. And his face, Christ almighty, his face was exactly like the one in Mom's hidden photographs. Tommy. looking not a day older than when he'd disappeared. I hit the brakes so hard the trailer tried to pass me, fighting the wheel as 18 wheels fought for purchase on wet asphalt. The Jake brake screamed like a banshee. When I finally got her stopped, I was 50 yards past where I'd seen him. I grabbed the spotlight and swung it back. Nothing. Empty road. Just the rain starting up again and the wind pushing tumbleweeds across the asphalt like lost souls. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the truck in reverse. I backed up slowly, searching the shoulder with the spotlight, but there was nothing there, no footprints in the mud, no sign anyone had been standing in that spot. Just me, Meow, and the empty Texas night stretching out in all directions. "Did you see that?" I asked the cat, feeling crazy for even talking to him. But Meow just blinked slowly and settled back into the passenger seat like hitchhiking ghosts were just part of a normal Tuesday night. I sat there for a good 5 minutes, engine idling, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. Maybe I was more tired than I thought. Maybe 18 hours behind the wheel was finally catching up. But I knew what I'd seen. That was Tommy. My brother, who'd been missing for 46 years, standing on the side of Route 66 like he was waiting for a ride. The phone rang, making me jump hard enough to hit my head on the cab roof. Unknown number, Arizona area code. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Jake?" The voice was rough, old, but somehow familiar. "Jake, this is hard to explain. My name is Maria Delgado. I knew your brother. I've been waiting 46 years to make this call. Lady, I don't know what kind of game. The cat found you, didn't he? Meow. Orange tabby with a leather collar." Her voice was urgent now. "Listen to me very carefully. You need to get to those coordinates before sunrise. Tommy left something for you, something important. But there are others looking for it too. Others who've been waiting just as long as I have. Who are you? How do you know about—" "I was with Tommy the night he left. We were together. He saved my life, Jake, saved it by giving up his own future. But he saw you in his dreams, saw this moment, saw the cat finding you exactly 46 years later. He made me promise to watch over Meow's descendants, to make sure one of them found you when the time was right." My head was spinning. "This is insane. Tommy's dead. He has to be dead." "Death isn't always what we think it is," Maria said softly. "Not on Route 66, not in the old places. The road remembers everything, Jake. Every traveler, every story, every sacrifice. Tommy knew that. He used it." A semi blew past, rocking my truck in its wake. The driver hit his air horn, probably wondering why I was sitting on the shoulder like a rookie who'd just discovered mountain grades. But I couldn't move. Not yet. "What's at those coordinates?" I asked. "Answers. And a choice. The same choice Tommy made 46 years ago. But Jake, you need to hurry. The others, they've been watching the bloodline. They know about you. They know about tonight. And they won't let you reach those coordinates if they can help it." "They're what others? Who's they?" But the line was already dead. I tried calling back, but the number just rang and rang. Meow meowed once, sharp and urgent, and pawed at the windshield. When I looked up, my blood froze. In the distance, maybe a mile back, I could see headlights, moving fast, too fast for normal traffic, and something about the way they moved, weaving between lanes like they were hunting. I dropped the hammer and got rolling, pushing the peat harder than I should in these conditions. Whatever was at those coordinates, I was going to find it. Because now I wasn't just curious. Now I was running from something. The speedometer was pushing 85, which in a loaded semi on wet roads was basically asking for a meeting with St. Peter. But those headlights were gaining, and something told me stopping wasn't an option. Meow had moved to the dashboard, his eyes fixed on the mirrors like a co-driver watching for bears. I grabbed the CB mic. "Breaker, breaker, this is Sooner State with an emergency. Got multiple vehicles pursuing me westbound on 66 near marker 142. Any drivers in the area, please respond." Static. Then, "Sooner State, this is Night Rider about 5 miles ahead of you. What kind of trouble you in, driver?" "The kind I can't explain on an open channel." These boys are moving aggressive, trying to run me off the road. 10-4. Tell you what, there's a way station at marker 151, closed for construction. I'll be waiting there with my high beams on. We'll see if these boys want to play when it's 2 on however many. God bless the Brotherhood of the Road. I'd never met Knight Rider, but he was ready to stand with me against unknown danger just because I asked. That's truckers for you. The pursuing vehicles were close enough now that I could make out details. 3 black SUVs, windows tinted darker than DOT regulations would ever allow. They moved in perfect formation, like a wolf pack. The lead vehicle surged forward, trying to get alongside my trailer. Meow hissed, an ugly sound I wouldn't have expected from such a small cat. At the same moment, my engine coughed. The temperature gauge spiked. Power steering went heavy. Everything electronic in the cab flickered and died. CB, phone, even the dashboard lights. Only the headlights stayed on, and even they were dimming. What the hell? I wrestled with the wheel as the truck started losing speed. No Jake brake, no power assist, just 40 tons of steel and cargo fighting physics on a wet road. The SUVs fell back, like they were waiting for something. Then I saw why. Up ahead, right where Knight Rider said he'd be waiting, the way station was lit up like a truck stop on Free Coffee Day. But it wasn't construction equipment in there. It was more black SUVs. A trap. Meow meowed urgently and pawed at my jacket. The postcard. Tommy's postcard. I pulled it out, and in the dim light from the dying headlights, I saw something I'd never noticed before. The picture on the front, a stretch of Route 66, had tiny numbers written along the bottom edge. GPS coordinates, different from the ones on Meow's collar. Emergency exit, I muttered, scanning the road ahead. There, an old service road, barely visible in the darkness. The kind of path that existed before the interstate when 66 was the only way west. I cranked the wheel hard, no power steering, making it feel like arm wrestling a gorilla. The truck lurched off the main road, tires screaming. The SUVs behind me overshot the turn, their brakes lighting up the night like Christmas. But I knew they'd be back. The service road was rough, potholed, barely wide enough for my rig. Every bump threatened to break something essential, but the engine had mysteriously smoothed out the moment we left the main road. "You know where we're going, don't you?" I asked Meow. He was sitting calm as a Buddha now, eyes forward, like a navigator who knew every turn. The service road wound through the desert, past abandoned buildings that looked older than the road itself. Adobe structures. Stone foundations, places that existed before America decided to pave its way west. And with each mile, my truck ran better, stronger, like the old road was feeding it somehow. 20 minutes later, following that winding service road and Meow's occasional directional meows, we emerged onto a different stretch of 66. This wasn't the maintained tourist route. This was the old road, the real road, cracked asphalt and faded yellow lines that probably hadn't seen a road crew since the interstate killed it. My phone suddenly blazed back to life, along with all the electronics. The CB exploded with chatter. "State! Where the hell did you go? You just vanished off the road." Knight Rider's voice was frantic. "I'm okay," I replied, checking my mirrors. No sign of the SUVs. "Took a detour. Thanks for trying to help, driver." Brother, I'm at that way station, and you ain't gonna believe this. Those SUVs, they just sat there for about 5 minutes, then turned around and headed back east. Like they couldn't go any further, like something was stopping them. I looked at the GPS. The new coordinates from Tommy's postcard showed we were close, maybe 3 miles. But the original coordinates from Meow's collar were still 40 miles west. 2 destinations, 2 messages from my brother. Why? The phone rang. Maria again. "You found the old road," she said without preamble. "Good, they can't follow you there. The road protects its own, and Tommy made sure you'd be considered one of its own. Lady, I need answers, real answers, not riddles. Your brother discovered something about Route 66, about what it really is. It's not just a road, Jake. It's a river of stories, dreams, possibilities. Every person who ever traveled it left something behind. An echo, a memory. And in certain places, where the veil is thin, those echoes can become real again. That's crazy talk. Is it? You saw Tommy tonight? You saw him as he was in 1975? Because part of him is still here, still traveling this road, caught between then and now. He sacrificed his linear existence to save something, to save someone, to save you, Jake. The headlights caught a sign ahead. Abandoned mine, no trespassing, danger. The GPS showed this was it, the first set of coordinates. I pulled off onto a dirt track that led towards some low hills. In 1975, Maria continued, Tommy and I discovered something. A group that had been using the road's power for their own ends, feeding off the dreams and hopes of travelers. Growing stronger with each decade. They wanted Tommy to join them. He had the gift, you see, the ability to see the road's true nature. When he refused, they came after him. They came after everyone he loved. They showed him visions of the future. Your father drinking himself to death. Your mother's cancer, you, Jake, you dying at birth because of complications they would cause, unless Tommy gave them what they wanted. I stopped the truck at the end of the dirt track. An old mining structure loomed in the headlights, all rusted metal and broken dreams. Meow was already at the door, pouring to get out. So he made a deal, I said, the pieces falling into place. Not a deal, a sacrifice. He scattered himself across the road's timeline, became part of its story. In exchange, the road would protect his family, would ensure you lived, would guide you here to this moment, when you could finish what he started. Which is, the group still exists, Jake. They're still feeding off travelers, still growing stronger, but Tommy found their anchor point, the place where they tie themselves to the road. He hid the key to destroying it, split between two locations. The mine has the first part. The coordinates on Meow's collar have the second. I grabbed a flashlight and climbed down from the cab. Meow was already trotting toward the mine entrance, his tail high like he'd been here before. Maybe his ancestors had. Maybe this was always meant to happen. 46 years in the making. Jake, Maria's voice was soft now. Be careful. And remember, on Route 66, the past is never really past. Your brother is counting on you. The mine entrance was a mouth of darkness that seemed to swallow my flashlight beam. Meow didn't hesitate, padding into the blackness like he owned the place. I followed, the temperature dropping 20 degrees the moment I crossed the threshold. The walls were carved from red rock, smooth in places like they'd been polished by countless hands over centuries. About 50 feet in, my flashlight caught something that made me stop cold. Paintings on the walls. Not Native American petroglyphs like you'd expect, but something else. Scenes of Route 66, painted in a style that looked both ancient and impossibly modern. Cars that hadn't been invented yet traveling roads that no longer existed. And in every scene, shadows, dark figures feeding off the light of the travelers. Tommy was here, I whispered, recognizing his artistic style from the drawings Mom had saved. But these weren't 46 years old. The paint looked fresh, still tacky in places. Like he'd been here recently. Like time meant nothing in this place. Meow meowed from further ahead, the sound echoing strangely. I followed and found him sitting in a circular chamber. In the center was a metal box, military surplus by the look of it, with T. Sullivan, October 31st, 1975, stenciled on top. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a leather journal, a set of car keys to a '67 Camaro, and what looked like a piece of the road itself, a chunk of asphalt with the yellow line still painted on it. But it was the journal that drew my attention. Tommy's handwriting, starting from October 1975. Jake, if you're reading this, then Meow found you. Good. I'm sorry for everything you went through. Sorry I couldn't be the big brother you deserved. But I saw what would happen if I stayed. Saw you die before you were even born. Saw Mom waste away. Saw Dad destroy himself. The feeders showed me thinking it would break me. Instead, It gave me the solution. I sat down hard on the cave floor, reading by flashlight while Meow kept watch. The feeders have been here since before the road was paved. They're parasites, feeding off the dreams and hopes of travelers. Every person who drives Route 66 looking for something better, searching for the American dream, they leave a little bit of that hope on the road. The feeders consume it, grow stronger from it. They've been doing it for centuries, following the old trade routes, the wagon trails, and now the Mother Road. The journal detailed Tommy's discovery of their operation, how they recruited people with the sight, those who could see the road's true nature, how they'd been slowly draining the life from Route 66, turning it from America's Main Street into a dying memory. But I found their weakness. They need an anchor, a physical point where they tie their existence to our reality. It's hidden at the second location, the coordinates I left with Maria's cat. But to destroy it, you need what's in this box. The road fragment is from the exact spot where they first manifested in 1926, when Route 66 was born. The keys... Jake, the keys are to my Camaro. I left it for you. It's special. It can travel the old roads, the ones that exist between then and now. I picked up the keys, feeling their weight. A muscle car key with a worn leather keychain that said, "Time is a highway." The feeders will try to stop you. They've probably already found you. But you have something I didn't. You have 46 years of my preparation. Every October 31st, I've been adding protections to the road. Every year I've been weakening their hold. Now it's time to finish it. The journal's last entry was dated today, this morning, written in handwriting that had aged 46 years, but signed by a man who hadn't aged a day. One more thing, little brother. The feeders aren't human, never were. They're something older, something that came here with the first travelers to cross this land. But they wear human faces now. They drive human cars. They've adapted. The ones chasing you, they're just the scouts. The real power is at the anchor point. Be ready. I closed the journal and looked at Meow. He was sitting by another passage I hadn't noticed before, one that led deeper into the mine. Following him, I found myself in what looked like an underground garage. Impossible, this deep in a mine, but there it was. And in the center, covered by a tarp that looked new despite the dust of decades, was Tommy's Camaro. I pulled off the tarp and gasped. The car was perfect. 67 Camaro SS, black with silver racing stripes, chrome gleaming like it had just rolled off the assembly line. The license plate read Tamiles. I ran my hand along the hood and felt something electric, like the car was more alive than any machine had a right to be. The keys fit perfectly. The engine turned over on the first try, purring like Meow on a good day. The gas gauge showed full. The odometer read 66,666 miles. Everything about this car screamed impossibility. But after tonight, impossible was just another word for Tuesday. I loaded Meow and our supplies into the Camaro, including the road fragment and Tommy's journal. The car's interior smelled like leather and time, with a hint of something else. Freedom, maybe, or possibility. The radio came on by itself, playing Steppenwolf's Magic Carpet Ride like it knew what was coming. Driving out of the mine in that Camaro was like sliding between realities. One moment we were in the dark tunnel, the next we were on a stretch of Route 66 that my GPS insisted didn't exist. The road was perfect here, black asphalt with bright yellow lines like it had just been paved, but the landscape was wrong, or maybe right. It showed Route 66 as it had been in every era, 1920s dirt road, 1950s prosperity, 1970s decline, modern tourist trap, all existing simultaneously. "This is what Tommy found," I said to Meow. "The real Route 66, all of it, all at once." The speedometer wasn't showing miles per hour anymore. It showed years. 1975, 1985, 1999, 2021. The numbers flickered and changed as we drove, and through the windows I caught glimpses of different times. A convoy of Dust Bowl refugees heading west, military convoys during World War II, Hippies in painted vans, modern families on vacation, all traveling the same road, separated only by when. The radio crackled, not music now, but voices. CB chatter from across the decades, truckers from the 70s warning about speed traps that wouldn't exist for 20 years, modern drivers talking about restaurants that had closed in the 60s, and through it all, one voice becoming clearer. Jake? Jake, can you hear me? Tommy. Not a memory or an echo, but really him. I hear you, I said, gripping the wheel tighter. Good, you found the car. She's special, little brother. She can ride the temporal currents of the road. You're going to need that ability for what comes next. The anchor point isn't just hidden in space, it's hidden in time. The feeders scattered it across multiple decades to protect it. How do I find it? Meow knows. He's not just a cat, Jake. He's a road guardian. His line has been protecting travelers since before there were roads to travel. Trust him. And Jake, when you see me at the anchor point, because you will see me, remember that time isn't a line here. It's a circle. Everything that will happen has happened. Everything that has happened will happen again, unless we break the cycle. The radio went silent. Up ahead, the road shimmered like heat mirages in the desert. Through the shimmer, I could see the modern road. The real 2021 Route 66, but I could also see something else. Black SUVs, dozens of them, waiting at the point where the old road met the new. Meow stood up on the passenger seat, his orange fur bristling with an energy I'd never seen before. He yowled, not a normal cat sound, but something primal that made the Camaro's engine rev in response. The speedometer spun wildly through the decades. 1962, 1978, 1994, 2003, before settling on 1999. The shimmer ahead solidified into a clear November night, and the black SUVs vanished like smoke. Smart cat, I muttered, understanding. We'd time-shifted to avoid the ambush, but as we rolled through the darkness of 1999's Route 66, I noticed something wrong. The road was too empty. No trucks, no cars, no lights except our headlights cutting through the void. Even for a late night in the desert, this was apocalyptic empty. The radio crackled again, but this time it wasn't Tommy. It was a news broadcast, static-filled and urgent. Tss! Authorities are advising all travelers to avoid Route 66 between Flagstaff and Kingman. Multiple reports of vehicles vanishing without a trace. The highway patrol has closed. The broadcast cut to static. In the silence that followed, I heard it. A sound like wind through a canyon, but wrong. Hungry, it was coming from everywhere and nowhere, and Meow was pressed flat against the seat, ears pinned back. The feeders, I whispered. This is when they got bold, when they stopped hiding. The Camaro's headlights caught movement ahead. Shadows that shouldn't exist, flowing across the road like oil. As we got closer, I saw them clearly for the first time, the feeders in their true form. They looked like tears in reality itself, vaguely humanoid, but made of absolute darkness that seemed to pull light into it. Where they touched the road, the asphalt cracked and aged decades in seconds. One of them turned toward us, and where its face should have been was a void filled with the dreams it had stolen. I saw fragments of 1,000 journeys, families seeking better lives, truckers chasing freedom, tourists hunting adventure, all being slowly digested by this thing that had no right to exist. The road fragment in my jacket pocket grew hot, burning through the leather. The feeders recoiled from us, their shadow forms writhing. The Camaro's engine roared without me touching the gas, and we punched through their gathering like a bullet through smoke. In the rear-view mirror, I watched them reform, beginning to pursue. Meow, where's the anchor point? I asked, taking the next exit as he directed with urgent pause, pointing right. We left the main highway for a frontage road that probably hadn't seen maintenance since the interstate was built. The Camaro handled it like silk, its suspension adjusting to roads that existed in different time periods simultaneously. 5 miles in, past abandoned motels that flickered between ruins and their glory days, Meow yowled again. I saw it immediately. A truck stop that couldn't decide what era it belonged to. The sign read Crossroads, Fuel and Diner, but the letters kept changing styles, from hand-painted 1940s script to modern LED and back again. The place was wrong in every way. The parking lot was full of vehicles from across the decades, a 1930s Ford pickup, a 1950s Greyhound bus, 1970s big rigs, modern SUVs, all looking freshly parked but covered in dust that suggested they'd been there forever. The drivers were still in some of them, still behind the wheels, still staring straight ahead, with eyes that reflected nothing but road. The ones who didn't get away, I said, feeling sick. The feeders kept them as... what? Batteries. Tommy's journal had mentioned this. The feeders didn't just take hope and dreams. Sometimes they took the dreamers themselves, trapping them in eternal loops of their journey, forever almost reaching their destination, but never arriving. The perfect food source. Hope that never died, because it never succeeded. I parked the Camaro strategically, facing outward for a quick escape. The road fragment was burning so hot now, I had to wrap it in Tommy's journal to hold it. Meow leapt out and headed straight for the diner. His tail bristled to twice its normal size. The feeder's sound was getting closer, that hungry wind that ate possibilities. The diner door opened before I touched it. Inside was a maze of temporal confusion. Booths from the 1950s sat next to modern tables. A jukebox played songs that hadn't been written yet, on records that had crumbled to dust decades ago. And behind the counter, polishing a glass with mechanical precision, was a man who looked human until you noticed he had no shadow. "We've been expecting you, Jake Sullivan," he said, with a voice like gravel in a cement mixer. "Your brother made quite an impression when he came through, caused us considerable inconvenience." "Where's the anchor point?" I demanded, gripping the wrapped road fragment. The thing wearing a human face smiled, revealing too many teeth. "Oh, it's here. It's been here since we convinced them to route the highway past this spot. Every traveler who stops here, every dream that passes through, it feeds the anchor, makes us stronger. Your brother thought he could destroy it. Instead, we made him part of it." He gestured to the wall behind him. What I'd taken for vintage photographs were actually windows into trapped moments. And in one of them, I saw Tommy. Not the echo I'd seen on the road, but really him, frozen mid-step in 1975, reaching for something just out of frame. His eyes were the only things that moved, tracking my movement with desperate urgency. "You son of a bitch," I growled, starting forward. But Meow yowled a warning, and I stopped. The floor between me and the counter wasn't solid. It was a pool of liquid time, reflecting not the ceiling, but the sky of every day that had ever passed over this spot. One wrong step, and I'd joined the collection on the wall. "Your brother was clever," the feeder continued. "He realized the anchor couldn't be destroyed from the outside, so he tried to poison it from within, scattered himself across our network. It gave him some measure of freedom, true, but it also made him part of our food supply. Every October 31st, when he performs his little protections, we feed on his hope that someone will come to finish what he started." The wrapped road fragment pulsed in my hand like a heartbeat. Tommy's journal had been clear. The fragment was the key. But how to use it when I couldn't even reach the anchor? That's when I noticed something. Meow wasn't looking at the feeder or the temporal pool. He was staring at the jukebox. Following his gaze, I saw it. The song titles were all wrong. Instead of Blue Suede Shoes and Rock Around the Clock, they showed dates: October 31st, 1975, March 15th, 1987, July 4th, 1999, December 25th, 2015, and one that made my blood run cold: October 31st, 2021, today. "The jukebox," I breathed. "The anchor isn't a place. It's a collection of moments." The feeder's human mask slipped, revealing the void beneath. "Clever boy, just like your brother. But knowing what it is won't help you. You'd need to be in all those moments simultaneously to... I was already moving, not toward the counter but to the Camaro. The keys were hot in my hand as I turned the ignition. The speedometer went crazy again, cycling through years like a slot machine. I gripped the wheel and did something insane. I floored it in reverse while cranking the wheel hard right. The Camaro spun, tires screaming across asphalt that existed in multiple decades at once. We carved a perfect donut in the parking lot, and with each rotation the world blurred. 1975, 1987, 1999, 2015, 2021. All of them at once. The Camaro existing in every moment the anchor had been fed, connected to every temporal point simultaneously. The world exploded into fragments of time. Through the Camaro's spinning windows, I saw myself in multiple iterations, past, present, and futures that might never be. In 1975, a young Tommy walked into the diner for the first time, camera around his neck, unaware of the trap. In 1987, a family of 4 entered and never came out. In 1999, the mass disappearances that had made the news. In 2015, a lone trucker named Big Mike Peterson, I recognized him from the CB chatter, pulled in for coffee and became another photograph on the wall. And in every timeline, the feeders were there, growing stronger, their shadow forms becoming more solid with each stolen dream. The road fragment in my hand was white-hot now, burning through Tommy's journal wrapping. As the Camaro completed another revolution, I understood what I had to do. The anchor existed in multiple moments, but they all had one thing in common, this physical space. The fragment wasn't just a key, it was a virus, a piece of the original road from before the feeders corrupted it. "Meow!" I shouted over the screaming tires. "When I say now, you run for Tommy's window." The cat yowled acknowledgement, his form blurring as he too began existing in multiple time streams. Through the diner windows, I could see the feeder in human form panicking, its mask completely gone now, revealing the hungry void beneath. Other feeders were pouring in through the walls, dozens of them from across the timeline, all converging on this moment. I cranked the wheel harder, pushing the Camaro to its impossible limits. The speedometer needle snapped off, unable to handle the temporal velocity. In my hand, the road fragment began to crack, light pouring through the fissures, not regular light, but the captured sunshine of every perfect road trip that had ever been, the golden glow of American dreams still untainted. "Now!" I slammed the brakes while spinning the wheel full lock. The Camaro went from spinning donut to perfect slide, aimed directly at the diner's front entrance. Meow launched himself from the passenger window, an orange streak across multiple timelines. I grabbed the burning road fragment and dove from the driver's door, just as the Camaro punched through the diner's wall. The collision happened in all times, simultaneously. In 1975, Tommy looked up from his coffee to see his own car crashing through the wall 46 years before he'd own it. In 1987, the family of 4 suddenly had an escape route. In 1999, the vanishing truckers found themselves back in their rigs. In 2015, Big Mike Peterson blinked awake from a 6-year nightmare. And in 2021, I hit the liquid time floor, holding the road fragment high. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The fragment dissolved into the temporal pool like acid into water, spreading its corruption in reverse, not destroying, but purifying. The stolen dreams and trapped hopes began breaking free, swirling up from the pool in ribbons of light. Each one was a story interrupted, now finally allowed to reach its conclusion. The feeders screamed, a sound like reality tearing. They tried to flee, but the purified time was spreading too fast. Everywhere the cleansing light touched, their shadow forms dissolved, revealing them for what they truly were. Parasites that had attached themselves to humanity's greatest road, feeding on the journey itself. I fought through the chaos toward Tommy's window. Meow was already there, pawing at the glass that separated 1975 from 2021. My brother's eyes were wide, his hand pressed against the barrier between us. As the cleansing light reached his prison, cracks appeared in the temporal glass. "Jake!" His voice came through, distorted but clear. "You have to break all the windows, free everyone. The anchor won't fully dissolve until every trapped soul is released." I grabbed a chair and started swinging at Tommy's window. Each impact sent cracks spiderwebbing across the temporal glass, but it held firm, reinforced by 46 years of stolen time. Around us, the diner collapsed as freed souls ran for their vehicles, engines starting across multiple decades. "It's not enough," Tommy shouted through the cracking barrier. "I'm the primary anchor. If you free me without a replacement, everyone gets pulled back. Then we find another way." "There is one." Tommy's voice was calm now. "Meow isn't just a cat. He's a temporal constant. Maria's grandmother bound his bloodline to protect the road. He can stabilize the network while it heals." Meow yowled and leaped into the liquid time pooling on the floor. Instead of drowning, he absorbed it, his orange fur glowing with the same light as the road fragment. His green eyes held an intelligence that was decidedly uncat-like as he nodded once. "Smart cat," Tommy smiled. "Now break the glass, little brother." With Meow stabilizing the temporal network, Tommy's prison finally shattered. He stumbled out, not the young man from 1975, but somehow all ages at once, before settling on what he should have been, a 70-year-old man with eyes full of hope. We ran as the building folded in on itself. The Camaro sat untouched, engine purring. Around us, freed travelers drove off into their proper times, their journeys finally allowed to continue. "Is it over?" I asked. Tommy looked at where the diner had been. Now just empty desert with a historical marker noting a fuel station that burned down in 1959. History rewriting itself. "The anchor is broken. The feeders can't use Route 66 anymore." He looked at Meow, who was washing his face like nothing had happened. "But the road will always need protectors." We climbed into the Camaro. Tommy pulled out his old camera, snapping a picture of us. Some things are worth preserving. The coordinates led to a desert rise. We dug where Tommy indicated, finding a metal box containing a journal of Route 66's supernatural history, keys to safety deposit boxes, and a vial of liquid starlight. "Water from the original blessing," Tommy explained. "The new Guardian should have it." "I'm not a Guardian, I'm just a trucker." "You're a trucker who drives Route 66, who listened when a strange cat asked for help. That's all being a Guardian really is." We drove back toward Flagstaff. Tommy had 46 years of music to catch up on. Near Ash Fork, he asked about Dad. I told him the truth, how our father searched for years, never giving up hope, dying still believing Tommy would return. "I wanted to come back every day," Tommy said quietly, "but the feeders would have followed." At the truck stop, Tommy looked at the modern world he'd missed. "First, I'm eating a real meal, then calling our sister, then I'm going to live, really live." He handed me the Camaro keys. "She's yours now. Sometimes the road needs more than an 18-wheeler. I watched him walk into the truck stop, no longer carrying the weight of temporal imprisonment. Meow curled up in my lap, purring like a diesel engine. The Guardian had chosen his trucker, and Route 66 had its protector. The Mother Road was safe again.